Oh, shoot. Welcome, 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 welcome. And we're back. So today, I'm just gonna sit here and just type, I guess. You guys can follow along if... Hello? There we go. Oh, lag. Lag. Jesus Christ. Lot to load. Yeah, you can come join, follow along, and stuff like that. The link is... Throw it in chat real quick. Oh, thank you. A link to the actual site. Put it over here. And throw it in chat. Yeah, it's my own chat, my guy. Don't tell me the rules. Oh. What do you mean? I'll just do it on my end, on the other end. That's silly. That's silly. No, don't copy my Wi-Fi. Just copy the freaking... Bro. Oh, because I'm doing MacBook commands. Copy. Boom. Edit. Paste. That's not paste. Command V. There we go. Boom. I could actually. Hold on. Go to my profile and fix my links there. Can I do that? Can I do that? Can I do any of that here? Username, nope. Interesting. Wait, no, prime, nope. No, no. Okay. Oh, there's a link there. YouTube. Can I add more link? Like one more link? Just one. Just one. Oh, there we go. Cool. Oh, what the hell? Alright, that works. Cool, we got the link in the thing, hopefully. Sick. Anyways, sorry for a little bit of troubleshooting. Here we are. So, got some feedback yesterday of things that I should look at and work on. I mean, besides the drawings of the drawings, I don't have the technology to image this. And I'm still trying to even understand the equations that are involved in it. I can explain it verbally pretty easily or by typing it out here, but there's so much more that needs to get done. So in addition, I do have all this random crap here for evidence and yada yada yada. Hold that. our innate 2 letters, 2 N's. Table of contents. I gotta figure out the linkage. Like, I want to be able to hyperlink things within here. Maybe if I had a placeholder at the bottom, but I don't know. I do want to add YouTube. Oh no, I don't need a video. Jesus Christ. Okay, well it is connected, so that works. Forms, no. Hmm. Yeah, it's just iteration of that. I do want to keep these up top. Collection of evidence on X. Let's see if these links still are there, because Elon. Ay ay ay. Yeah, I'll add YouTube channel going over all this. Going over all of this. These concepts, because it's a bunch of different things all together. So we'll link the YouTube as well. Okay. I want to see if I bullshit. I've never seen it come up purple like that before. Strange. Is that? No. Is. I mean, it's there. Okay, whatever. Sure. So a lot of this outline. Hmm. Is objectively good versus objectively bad perspectives. Because that is essentially how our emotional response works when it comes to love and hate, when you just think of the dichotomy of that. Bad perspective. Yeah, I do want to. Well, it is relative to existence, just in general. To existence. Existence of what? Depends on what you're looking at. But that's literally determining emotional response on this scale. I should do on a scale. And I should probably. Guess I know I can't spell that well. Determining. Yeah, I'll do that. I don't know what. I want a number. Whatever. There we go. Yeah, because that's the gist of it. For those that do make it to the end, you'll see where I bring it up with the Grok transcript. I do have to elaborate on the psychology aspects more, but this explains emotions, basically. Like in the most simplest way, from love to hate, and then everything in between, because sadness it depends on what you see. I mean, sadness is understanding of loss of love, which people typically hate, and hate and sadness coincide in a sense, but the difference is the will to make change, the will to do something. And it's also relative to instincts. Relative to instincts to survive. Because obviously, typically love to exist. We love to survive. There is a fundamental instinct from consciousness as we observe from animals. Observable as, I mean, path of least resistance typically. Resistance, most resilience. When we start thinking of it in that way. Least resistance, most resilience to survive. So, or relative to existence. And I should probably cool. See, versus lived experiences. From some of what is understood, extrapolated from either or. Determines your character. I mean, that's just how it is. Depending on how you lived your life, what you've experienced within it. Some of, I don't know why I doubled of. There we go. But that's typically how you can tell someone's, well, not even just tell someone's character by knowing the history, but they act based on that. Alongside their actions taken from such understanding available, or involved, I should say. Or misunderstanding. That understanding. It's and. but typically people will act on what they believe, or yeah, some of what one believes. One believes. Understanding plus, or well, understanding versus misunderstanding relative to actions performed. Or relative to actions taken. There's many ways. It's just action in general. Because you can think of doing an action and not act on it, which, I mean, taking the time to understand what the consequences of your action is a part of understanding how actions work. So it's relative in that sense. And then I can bring this down over. I don't want numerations. Excuse me. I want that. No, I want that. There we go. Extrapolate. Called in any and all actions from a form of consciousness. Basically. I mean, this is how you can relate to things that don't have free will, as there's a fundamental understanding within its framework of like objects of other forms of matter that aren't biological and autonomous. And those qualities is what determines the character of the object, right? It's how rough it is, how useful it might be, depending on use case and the actions that it's going to be involved in. So we can look at it that way. In terms of philosophy, I don't really need to say much about that. That's up to debaters as a dependent variable. Of that. I go over what everything in that equation relates to. Of form of mass energy. To put it simply, because we are all made up of energy and mass. The energy that is in form in the quantum scale dictates the mass relative to the Higgs field and all this other stuff, yada yada. So this is where application is determined, because it's the existence or wait, let's form mass energy that exists. It doesn't matter if it's being observed or not. This is just that is what it is. You know? We're not trying to necessarily figure out the unknown from just this. There's no way to do that. The only way to do that is apply this when observing, when thinking when just anything. Like when you're doing stuff with something that's measurable. Back to the channel. Oh, excuse me. I'll probably do this about an hour. Just kind of scanning through. I did a lot of this yesterday. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, just remember something else I could do. Alright, what's done there? Take the time to look at what I have so far. The visualization. This I also want to put in italics. Italics typically want to display my personal just thought itself. And then this is just a statement that I'm dealing with in the forward, or well, in the intro. I do have the preface here, just to keep it out in the open, full humility, and just to also account for the skepticism that I've already received from just even doing this, thinking like this, as well as the future scrutiny that's gonna come along with just anyone that looks at this. As that was definitely something, I mean, I've already understood personally when it comes to delivery and an audience and stuff like that, but as well as what the chatter pointed out yesterday was just the cynicism that comes from people when they look at something and it's not exactly up to par, quote unquote, with little mistakes here and there. Because I mean, just everyone forgets that we're all just human. We're all gonna make mistakes, that it takes a lot of time for things to get done, especially properly. It's taken humanity like thousands of years just to be where it's at now. Like, it is what it is. And I've only been doing this for like 7 months. So at least typing all this stuff and gathering all this information and putting it in one place. which is, I mean, that's basically the whole point. I'm gonna bold that as well because that is the equation from the perspective of the universe. And as I explained, you'll add plus k of t, depending on the chaos from misunderstanding that's always involved with the observer that's within the universe, or any form of consciousness that is within the universe that doesn't experience everything that's going on in the universe at one time, unlike the universe. So it's like it's like if aliens were watching us right now and they saw how things were going, you know? You can think of it that way, just stepping out of planet Earth, stepping out of the universe itself, just looking at it from the outside as it is, as a form of consciousness, as a body and framework. So that's another thing I do want to do as well. Physiology, body and mind relative to, I mean, system and framework, because it's literally what it is. I mean, the whole, or I should say systems, because it's going to be a collection of physical things. The physical versus the mental, or physical versus force, forces of action. I should say tangible reality, tangible reality versus forces of action, or well, including interaction and interaction, to say the least. Because I mean, you can act upon the air and interact with it. You're moving things that we can't perceive with our eyes, but it's still an interaction. We still feel wind, we still feel all that. Our body and everything else is moving. And this is why it relates to systems and framework on a universal scale from the perspective of the universe and as implemented the development of AI. And this is relative. Fuck. To, if you want to be nuanced, technological systems and logic framework. On my back. Wish I had an actual chair. That'd be great. Oh, shit. All right. I think those are good things to just even put out there, because this is why artificial intelligence and technology, why it's relative to that, relative to quantum mechanics, Newtonian physics, everything else. That's why I list biology. I mean, psychology. That's, you know, obvious. I'm going to bold these as well because these are all the different fields of studies that we're considering. So at least people can start to make the connections through each one as they look through this and apply all this sorts of stuff. I'm only saying physics because quantum mechanics. No, I'll do the whole Newtonian because it is a subset of physics. Sure, there's more that you can extend on here: psychology, philosophy, and I think that's basically it. You have philosophy, psychology, which is relative. I mean, it's relative to biology, but it's a subsection, whatever. And physiology is the subsection of that. You have the physical and the mental. The Do I really need to expand? I think I might have to make that connection. Oh wait, no, I already did. They're relative to body and mind. I mean, they're both relative to the body and mind, but more so because the brain just has a fundamental framework that it has to understand in order for things to work correctly. Psychology, it's prone to error, it's prone to the perceived experience. It's also relative as body and mind, but I think I should body clearly mind. There we go. That should make sense. I don't see why it shouldn't. Philosophy is religion. It's everything that comes from the mind in terms of how we see things. I should also put education. I mean, yeah, it is. uh, Equations. I'll just do the big three, but that's where everyone's gonna want to look at, anyways. I do have references to Einstein and Dirac's philosophical understanding. I should also do like Aristotle. It's basically all of them. But I think I forget who else it was that believed in the simplicity being beauty. I think it was Aristotle. Simplicity being beauty. Reduction in clarity. Yeah. Minimalist. I mean, it's. Hmm, hmm. Who was the philosopher? Is my guy. Who was it? Not influencers from YouTube. Philosophy. I think it's Aristotle, but I don't remember. Wabi-sabi. I mean, everyone has their own way of seeing it. Obviously. Oh, Richard Feynman. Yeah, another one. Ynam. This is just a quote. I should just do quotes or people think too far into it. Beauty and elegance. Yada yada. Alright. Opinion. TV. Yeah, this is of logic behind this thesis. In other words, the direction where I'm trying to go. Trying to make sense of things. So, and then I have the little test right there. Those lines, that just depends how far you zoomed in. Because it'll change. See? Zoom in one more. Oof, that's ugly. No, I'll do that. I wish I can move that over, but oh, whatever. Alright. True purpose of simplicity. Truly understand fundamental memory. Capital T. And I went over a lot of this yesterday. I do just want to go back to where I left off. Fundare. Those are, it's Latin, so I don't, fuck you, Google. Or autocorrect, whatever. That is a mistake, though. Yep. Can't trip myself over on those. Receive, force. Here. Latin, yep. Alright, this is where I left off. As I cannot know how to exist throughout time. As well, yeah, this is just live experience, perceived experiences. It's a single. Because for every instance that we're looking at when it comes to the universe. So this is the through line, though. This is very important. Boom, boom. Perceiving the universe as a fundamental form of consciousness, as for reality to maintain its existence throughout time, it must function in such a way that it can truly know to follow its own fundamental framework to not just some capacity, but total capacity. Elaborate lived experience equals perceived experience. That must be true. In regards to the universe, from the perspective of the universe, for reality to maintain its existence over time. As if as reality would not be able to maintain its, well, to truly maintain its existence over time. Well, entire existence over its entire timeline. Because this is the timeline. This is one timeline. This is also, there was a point yesterday that the chatter made about impossibility, and that did get me thinking a lot, because obviously impossibility is different than improbability, but impossibility in regards to the moment, in regards to the reality of any situation, does it exist? Because you can't just like blow up the world just by thinking about it. That's impossible. At least from me right now. I can't do that. You can't do that, most likely. Hopefully not. But that's the principle of impossibility, is understanding that the extremes, I mean, they don't exist, but the fact that they don't exist, the idea of those extremes do exist relative to things that we've experienced, relative to things that could be possible at a point in time, but not at this point in time. So when we get to that part, I'm going to elaborate that more, because that was definitely a weak point that I didn't consider. So very thankful for that time taken to review this, because it does help. I mean, once all these loopholes are set and done, then that's it. It is what it is. It's done. I mean, yeah. As strange of an idea as it may be, as that may be, like viewing things, but this is like the question and all that stuff. And that would mean the possibility of total sudden collapse of consciousness of the universe. Of the universe itself, regardless of what forms of matter were left in existence. Just, that would be, I mean, truly a false vacuum. Or for the vacuum. Fuck. No, not if. I even do that on the phone. I always, those two letters right next to each other. But the vacuum of space being a false, being truly a false vacuum. Should not capitalize that. I did that for emphasis, but you know. Oop. But we know this not to be true, obviously, because, I mean, there's no circumstance realistically that can just happen. That just doesn't, because it's the vacuum of space. It is what it is. The only way that it can happen is if there was nothing left in form in existence. If there was no thermodynamics left, absolute zero. I mean, it goes along with the heat death idea, but that's, I mean, we won't be able to live that long unless, for whatever reason, AI can outlast until like the very, very end, but then only AI is going to know, and maybe not humanity, unless it can facilitate something in space, like a space colony that humans would inhabit. Huh. But at that point, if there's no energy left in space, then that's just a slow death, unless you just take your own life at that point, and AI would just decay. I mean, all the neutrinos and stuff that were left in space and all the particles that still have energy left in space, it's going to take eons, like an unimaginable amount of time for all that to eventually sizzle to absolute zero. That's just how it is. I mean, that's we measure space itself. It gets close to it, so maybe in that instant that forever will feel like an instant because there's nothing left. I mean, we won't be able to experience it. AI won't even be able to experience it. Nothing will be able to experience it. There's no baryonic form of matter. There's no tangible form of matter. That whole realm is gone. It's only the quantum realm that's left, and maybe the atomic level. Free atoms in space. But I think that might be where the line would be drawn. Obviously, because I mean, it wouldn't matter to us. We'd be dead. We'd be gone. So this is why, when it comes to a theory of everything, it's always going to be a theory, no matter how you look at it. Because there's no way that we're going to be able to observe the end of the universe. That's just not possible. And yeah, I mean, at least following the definition of heat death and the definition of the vacuum of space being a vacuum of space. I think the only way that can be resolved into a false vacuum and everything collapses back in on itself and another big bang happens is when all the energy just doesn't exist anymore that keeps it open. It's absolute zero. There's only what's keeping the vacuum of space itself. There's nothing containing it. There's just nothing. So there are definitely attraction forces and repulsion forces involved with everything. That's how we've measured everything. So man, but it's just interesting concepts, and when you start asking these questions looking for these sorts of answers, it lines up. So actually, it was good that I took the time for that. Strange is an idea that maybe we have to realize that it's already been 53 minutes. What the hell? I barely did anything. God damn. Wait. Bro, I'm so confused. Oh my god. I don't know. Alright, as strange as my idea as it may be, we have to realize that in order for something to matter, it must hold true in some way, shape, or form. As the definition of matter. Have I been bolding all these? Yes, I have. And capitalizing. Because, I mean, this is the basis for the thesis. Is these definitions. This is the only way that we can construct this thesis in the philosophical sense. In respect to the testing that I've been doing in regards to LLMs, because that's what their end goal is, at least, is for an LLM to be realized, like as a like the end of the finish line, like imagining what the end of the AI race in terms of chatbots would be. It would be a master of philosophy, master of language, master of communication, master of understanding through communication, through language of such, whether it's math, English, Spanish, Romance languages, anything. That's how humans have worked and communicated, and as we see with the developments of AI itself, it's exponential. It's actually a graph. I can find it. Graph of development of AI. With different fields of study. Where was it? I want to find it. 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 Might be it. Our world in data. I forget. Oh no, I don't want cookies. Oh, yeah, it is this one. There it is. Yeah, so reason why I'm pointing this out, this is relative to, I mean, not linearity per se, but exponentiality. Because over time, as we've implemented these systems, it's come in an exponential rate. It's accelerated as exponential rate as we see this is more of a steady line, so more down like this way is a slope. Same thing with not handwriting. What is that? Image? Speech recognition. So as that has gone on, and then image recognition alongside speech recognition, two faculties of perspective shot up. And then everything else since then, because it already has this understanding relative to human understanding, just exponentially it's just straight up. This is the end of the race for AI. This is it. I mean, especially when we start looking at human capabilities, like with only 20% above, it's gonna flatline up here. It's gonna plateau. Because it can be smarter, it can do things a lot faster, depending on how you're measuring the scale, but I mean it's just gonna keep, I guess, going straight up, or maybe within the next, I want to say 10 years, this isn't really going to thin out too well, but it will thin out as an exponential curve for sure. The more systems that are implemented, but there's not that many more systems to implement, except for autonomy, because this is everything, basically. It's like it. Predictive reasoning, speech, handwriting, language, image. I mean, the smell, this touch, there's those parts that when they get on this graph, I'm sure they'll just shoot almost straight up because, especially when it gets autonomy, in order to understand how to build these systems, because it's built to understand. Like recognition, comprehension, understanding. That's all relative to understanding, reasoning, relative to logic. The mind is built. They just build on the body and the rest of the senses, and then you can have artificial human beings within probably just 5-10 years. Like purely made of silicone and metal or aluminum or whatever is more efficient, more capable. We already are designing, I mean, humanoid robots, but when you start implementing these other systems and then figuring out a way to reduce or increase the efficiency relative to the amount of energy necessary to run such a system, but obviously you can't put a nuclear reactor or just, I mean, you can plug it in and charge it. So there's limits to that. There's physical limits that are going to determine the lifespan, and the only thing you can do is just optimize each system, optimize the logic system and everything else so it doesn't take as much charge to think. It's still going to take more than human biology because we're made of carbon. We have special qualities that distinctly make us different from, metal and things with more electrons in it. Because carbon, I believe, has a very low electron count. So, carbon atom. Yeah, it's number 6 on the periodic table. Whereas, I mean, is it not made of carbon as well? Mostly ions. I mean, it's definitely more electrons and energy and structure that hold it together, but doesn't allow it to like automatically heal. It doesn't have cells or anything like that. And plus, our body is good at insulating and controlling the amount of electricity that's within our bodies that runs through our bodies. But I mean, this is why chemistry needs to be considered as well with the theory of everything and understanding real limits of this universe, how things are, and probably every iteration of the universe from here on. So, or the real multiverse of following a timeline rather than running in parallel, which is based off probability and possibility. So, interesting stuff. But yeah, not that. This is where a connection with physics and mathematics can be made when staying consistent with the perspective of the cosmic consciousness. The universe. The usage of the word matter is inherently relative as a form of action that occurs over time. As a definition, as an action word or verb states to be of importance, have significance. In order to matter to existence, a perceived form or framework must be recognized as to exist. So this goes into the semantics heavily. Fact or state of being. Reality. Exist here. Meaning to come into being. To matter. Because things that exist matter. As much as a play on words as that can be, it's true. Just say root. Damn, I got piss again. Be right back. I think after this week I'll start monetizing depending on what happens with my work schedule next week. Oh, shit. Alright, I'm back again. Another one. Pull this up. I wish I could just lounge. In order to understand the framework of existence, we can now delve. Just underline. Now delve into deriving the meaning of framework relative to the concept of existence equals truth over time. Just we'll keeping it simple. as framework is a basic structure underlying a system. From the three perspectives inherent to systems, concepts, and texts, a logical pathway through relative meanings of definitions can begin to set a structure that can be measured in some sense through those inherent and fundamental relationships as consciousness is relative to framework in a similar sense as the state of consciousness is determined by the framework it perceives and experiences as knowing one's own framework is fundamentally knowing the relative systems, concepts, and or texts as the cosmic consciousness period. That's a big ass fucking run on, I guess. As the cosmic consciousness is inherently subject to everything that matters within itself, as the universe contains everything within it over time, fundamentally as its objective reality of being. Yes. Therefore, the assertions that the universe perceives everything within itself exists. Lived experience equals perceived experience. That's the assertion. That it can also be asserted that the universe is fundamentally omniscient as a true core aspect. Omniscient and. Well, we're talking about just knowing everything. Let me recall the meaning real quick. We went over this the other day in the video that. I mean, the live stream's still there, but. Yeah, knowing everything. Yeah, so. Exactly what I mean there. As a true core aspect of its fundamental framework, as such, from the perspective of the universe, relative to the framework of reality, following the fundamentals of the cosmic consciousness, it exists over time, as it is able to perceive over time. And to perceive, I'll just highlight all that because I just put the Latin root there. Unbold. Unbold. Cool. Omniscient means knowing everything. It's very straightforward. Relative to the medieval Latin term, scree, we're doing a little medieval. Reason why we stick to the Latin is the fundamental beginnings of these words and their meanings to really drive the point home, essentially. Like, to anyone that wants to argue anything, you're arguing against history at that point, and that's not an argument you can really win, because what happened happened. Nothing you can do about it, and it doesn't matter what you say. You can only learn from it, and if you refuse to learn from it and want to fight against it, then you're part of the problem. It's just, I mean, see exactly what's going on today. Jesus. And to know means. Oh, don't break my thing. To. Big definition. Framework of the fundamentals of the cosmic consciousness, and all have measurable aspects depending on the available faculties of perception of the form of consciousness slash being. Beep, beep. Yes. Furthermore, relativity to perceived experience and lived experience exists. clearly. Relativity to the concept of an omniscient, omnipotent. Was omnipotence is it was it's a factor of three basically when you compare it to God. I don't bring up God right away. Of a deity having limited power, able to do anything. I mean, it's able to facilitate anything that exists within it relative to what exists. So there's a limit to anything, especially when we talk about reality and all that. Is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. Oh, omnipresent. Yeah, it is omnipresent. All right, so that is the other word. Omniscient. Yeah, that exists. Relativity to the existence of energy and its relative forms of matter, mass, and masslessness. I see where. Yeah, see, protons are just very interesting. But not photons, not protons. And I mean, I know there was a thing with MIT recently. They did an experiment, an updated slit experiment, and interesting observations for sure. These, but photons exist. Obviously, they make up space. They make up everything. Masslessness, baselessness. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I guess massless. I see why. And its relative forms of matter. And that's the thing. Is a photon matter? I mean, it matters in the sense of observation, and using the observation, we can transmit information. Obviously, fiber optics, for instance. Matter, mass. I don't know how to word this right. Relativity to the existence of energy and its relative forms of matter. And I want to say relative forms of matter and mass. I'm still somewhat convinced that photons, being massless, they don't really carry energy. They just reflect it, which might coincide with the results of MIT's experiment. And mass. Oh, shoot. Relative to the universe. Alongside massless particles which reflect energy as an observable perspective of information of consequence of action. basically, basically, relative to the universe, talking about photons, i.e., photons. Bosons, I think, have mass, but might just be a force identifier. I'm not too sure. I need to learn a little bit more about that. But in particular, I'm talking about photons in regards to that statement, because that's how we know photons. Photons follows like a weird rule of three. So, or maybe a wave particle. Just it goes between realms in a weird way. So relative to the energy, relative to the universe, relative to the reality, fundamentally. All right, yeah, this one's hard to digest. Furthermore, relativity to perceived experience and lived experience exists. Relativity to the concept of an omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent form of consciousness that exists. Relativity to the existence of energy and its relative forms of matter and mass alongside massless particles which reflect energy as an observable perspective. Information and consequence of action. Relative to the universe and relative to reality fundamentally. As all truly exists in a form of function, as reality exists and continues to exist over time, as time exists, as well as its flow relative to the forms of mass, energy, mass, matter. Consisting, consisting of mass, energy. Yeah, because when we get to the quantum realm, it's more so just fundamental. It's complex, but in form and measurement, relative to like spin and action and stuff like that, it's not complex. The complexity comes from the summation of all that within an atom, or within the nuclei of an atom, which dictates how many neutrons and protons are within the nuclei, which is dictated by the electron shell, but it also, in that quantum realm, dictates a fundamental decay, the beta decay, that's observed. As when time goes on, when the atoms interact with other atoms in space, electrons move, or protons are freed, neutrons break down into protons and electrons. Because of the quantum aspects of action and changes in energy over time. So, I think that's a better explanation. Or relative, after all. Play mindset for that. Facts. As well as every other physicist. Yeah. All right. With these further expansions of fundamental truths, more meaningful derivatives and integrations can be made in order to find the true answers that our collective and individual consciousnesses have been seeking for centuries. Yeah, as history has shown us many times, these truths have an equal and opposite falsehood that exists, has existed, or may exist, as dictated by the fundamental meanings of possibility and impossibility, as its relative true opposite. Hmm. Therefore, a connection between what is available within existence and possibility can be made by that definition. Alright, yeah, this is the part. This is the part. Here we go. Definition, as well as the connection between their respective and true opposites that fundamentally exist within the reality of this universe as dictated by the framework itself, as extinction also fundamentally exists in reality. So yeah, we're starting off with extinction relative to existence before tackling impossibility. I could elaborate. I will elaborate. Like was when measuring possibility and impossibility, because this has to do with probability and improbability. Improbable doesn't mean impossible. It's different. Measuring possibility. Wonder if I mean, do I really have to go over the definition for possibility and impossibility if I just go over these concepts? I don't know. I think I did, but was measuring possibility. Improbability. I don't even want to say suddenly, instantaneously, because we're thinking of the outrageous when it comes to impossibility. Instant. What? Not on a word. Instantaneous. No, brother. Wait, did I? No, that's not. Yeah, I knew that's not how you spell it. What the? Come on, man. Instantaneous. Did I spell it right? All right, yeah. Instantaneously. A trillionaire. Trillionaire. Or may not be able to instantly own every exotic vehicle on Earth all at one time have them instantly teleported into a we'll just do trillion car garage. It's outrageous, but that's a that's impossible right now. I can't do that. You can't do that. No one can do that. Especially at this moment. There is impossibility that exists. That's why I have to at least make such a claim like this. Like, to at least put it in perspective that it does exist. The idea the idea may exist and can be imagined in a tangible form of sorts, like a cartoon, but realistically, that is impossible. At least at this moment, and most likely any moment that's observed within this timeline of Earth and even this universe. This instance of this universe. This is to be as relative as possible with the statement. So, at least to bring that point home that when observing, like realistically, as a human being with physical cars that we're talking about, like tangible stuff. Yo, yo, what's up? Oh, Alright, I'm back. The stream is just gonna be put as a live anyways. I'm not making this a video. This is way too much to go over. Shit. Alright, back where we left off, the idea of impossibility existing. Because it does exist. There are things that are just fundamentally impossible. So, it is significant. Understand this truth as in regards to the amount of time left available to humanity on Earth. Bro, missing L. Available. It's significant to understand this truth of the existence of impossibility as in regards to the amount of time available, well, amount of time left available to humanity on Earth is fundamentally and realistically limited as the Earth's atmosphere can only allow humanity to exist as long as it's in such a state to allow us to exist, whether to breathe for one, or to, not instantly combust. Say melt, burn, whatever might be applicable at the time, depending, I don't know. A little bit of hyperbole there. For example, the Earth's atmosphere can only allow humanity to exist as long as it's in such a stable state to allow us to exist. I mean, we can try to work around it, but there's two things to it. I mean, we can figure out how to breathe, but the amount of energy that continue to cool ourselves once that happens, or if the atmosphere just disappears, there's many possibilities relative to the Earth's atmosphere and its future because of what we've done to it. Another example is the fact that our sun is at its midlife, and once in such a state where it is unable to continue to facilitate the orbit of Earth within a habitable zone, as it ages into a red giant. Caveat is if Earth still has a stable atmosphere by then. Atmosh. Atmosphere by then. Continue to facilitate the orbit of Earth within a habitable zone as it ages into a red giant. And if humanity hasn't found a real, tangible solution by then it is fundamentally doomed. Doomed to its fate due to the consequences of inherent ignorance of not understanding the reality of the current and future and probable futures. Futures. He has found a real tangible solution, then is fundamentally doomed to its fate due to the consequences of inherent ignorance of not understanding the reality of the current and probable current situation. Current developing situations arising from cause and effect or consequences of actions over time and the probable futures that may follow if such understanding is not does not exist, or if such understanding is not allowed to exist. I mean, yeah, that's the information war. Therefore, it is simply and fundamentally impossible to assert that this instance of Earth, the Sun, can be solar system can exist until the end, until the heat death, or the end. That's also impossible because nothing lasts forever. Because as observed through countless experiences here on Earth alone, nothing lasts forever. As for every beginning, there is an end. As macabre and that's just how it is. Following the true design of the theory of everything in the philosophical sense, being, existence equals, because now we're putting in the factor of extinction, and that's where we follow up afterwards. Because there's limits, there's real limits to everything. As there is real limits to everything. Following the true design of the theory of everything in the philosophical sense, being plus or minus truth over time equals negative existence or extinction. Mm. Mm. Yeah, it's the caveat because this is in the philosophical semantic sense. This is just the fundamental principle of belief. Therefore, a connection between what is available within existence and possibility can be made by definition. So, thank you yesterday, Chatter, for facilitating that sort of understanding and for helping me figure out the weak point here. This is a long paragraph. Hungry. For example, the Earth's atmosphere can only allow humanity to exist as long as it's in such a state to allow us to exist. Whether to breathe or not, instantly combust, melt, burn, etc. Another example. Another example is the fact that I do need a period there. Another example is the fact that our sun is at its midlife. Once it is at a state where it is unable to continue to facilitate the orbit of Earth within a habitable zone as it ages into a red giant, if Earth has a stable atmosphere by then if humanity hasn't found a real tangible solution to survive by then it is fundamentally doomed to its fate due to the consequences of inherent ignorance of not understanding the reality of the current development situation arising from causes and effects, consequences of actions over time, and the probable futures that may follow if such understanding is allowed to exist. In this reality, from this moment in time, it is simply impossible to increase the lifespan of the sun. There's no way for us to tangibly do that in scale. Relative to scale, nor may humanity be allowed a restart if there was such an extinction event that would take longer to recover from on a biological scale that would most likely take longer to recover from on Hello. Oh, that's good. Well, that's two random instances of good news. That's well, that actually worries me. Or may humanity be allowed to restart if such an extinction event occurred? That would most likely take longer to recover from on a biological scale than our sun and or atmosphere may allow by that moment in time. Time depends on what is left in existence to I don't think I have to extrapolate that much more. I mean there's more. It's the age of the earth. Age of the earth. Estimated. Age of the sun. It's about halfway. I mean, 4.54 billion years. It took 4.54 billion years to get this far. As it took 4.56 billion years to get to this point, while the this solar system is 4.60 billion years old. Bro, like yeah, this yep. I think I'll leave it there. That looks great. That looks okay. Yep. Huh. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna underline these facts. Mm-hmm. It is simply impossible. Of it occurred. Important as well. The mostly take long to cover biological sand than our sun and our atmosphere may allow. Mm. As of trace identity nuance, not trave, trace identity nuance. I want to say instance, and so trace identity nuance instance and yeah, I think no matter what I type here, it's not going to shift anyways. It's just going to shift down. Relative to truth, true opposite as fundamentally trace identity nuance instance and consideration of specifics and exactness. Relative to read. state of reality. This reality. The trace, identity, nuance, instance. Specifics, detail. Oh wait, no, in consideration. Instance, detail, circumstances. Circumstances. At any point in time. Any, I would say at any and all points in time along the timeline of this universe. There we go. That's like as well importance too. Well, not even just importance. Likewise, I mean, my example would be like if my whole body and everything was reconstructed somewhere else from scratch to almost the exact, I mean, to the exact likeness, it still isn't me. It hasn't lived through my, yeah, that's the example. So I'm going to close out with this and then publish this update and leave it there for now until we get back to the rest. But for instance, if your entire being was replicated exactly in form and biology at any given point in time, it would still not be you unless it lived through the exact same experiences in the exact same order with the exact same environment alongside the exact same consequences that were all lived and perceived for all the same exact experiences lived and perceived. Gonna bug me. No, stop. All right. Wait, for instance, if your entire being was replicated exactly in form and biology at any given point in time, it would still not be you unless it lived through the exact same experiences in the exact same order with the exact same environment alongside the exact same consequences that were all the same exact experiences lived and proceed throughout your entire existence. In in instance and exactness relative to the state of the entire universe at the time you existed. True. And it's a very, very nuanced consideration, but that's how you have to see it when you're thinking of the universe and reality. You're thinking of all the nuance, inclusive of everything, as a theory of everything, right? Every- to truly be you. Just how it is. It's the reality of it is that nothing truly repeats, but rather follows along similarly in relation depending on the circumstances of the experiences and the environment of any situation and interaction that occurs. Oh, that occur within the universe. all points along the timeline of this instance of the universe. So the reality of it is that nothing truly repeats, rather falls along similarly in relation depending on the circumstances, the experiences, and the environment of any situation and interactions occur that occur within the universe at all points along the timeline of this instance of the universe. Right, important. Uh, impossibility being. Just add this in. I might already have it in there, but no. Definition of all right, impossible, because that's a very stupid answer. Not able to occur, exist, or be done. Hmm. Able to occur, exist, or be done. Right, right. Hmm. I don't need to do the Latin root. I'm not. I'm not doing that. But I mean, impossibilis. Randy asks that certain actions can reoccur, but inclusive of nuance and exactness, it may be impossible to truly replicate the exact instance of consequence from such action as there exist many factors Hmm. Gonna put this here. Yeah, this is a good example. Maybe the same exact firearm. and what may or may not be probable. Yeah, there we go. All right. So hopefully that solves that issue of contention there when viewing things, because as a theory of everything should consider what's possible and impossible, and then what's probable or improbable. Likewise, a matter of possibility, probability. So there's some examples to consider, at least. Um, oh, I need the underline. Alrighty, and then it ends there with that. Connection. Okay. By definition. Negative existence. This in reality. Of extinction. Further simplification of definition in regards to the meaning of extinct. Therefore, the inherent inference of truth exists that extinction All right. Well, oh my god, I'm like not even a fifth through this. This is, oh my god. So this is where we're ending off. This is where the bar is. It's not even a quarter way. I mean, I don't have to look through the whole thing. I only have to look through up until kind of down here. There's a lot of work there, but up until, ooh, actually, it is pretty far. Jesus Christ. About halfway. So maybe I'm almost halfway there. Maybe. Yeah. There's a lot that I need to break down still. Oh, here we go. Underline. Make bigger. Much bigger. And then also let me get to 100%. So at least when you load the page, it'll look kind of neat at least. I got a lot to do within an hour and a half. A lot of this shit takes so long. But I'm also so hungry. I'm so hungry. Alright. Alright. Damn. Apparently that was 3 hours. I don't know. But we're making headway. Going over everything. Jesus. Yeah, this doesn't. These just don't work. I don't know. I don't know how to do the links like that, but so far, not too bad. Not too shabby. We got about here. Huh. And we end. I think we're about 2/3. I think we're about 2/3. Yeah, we're about 2/3. Actually, no, almost about halfway. Halfway through the actual background and application of this. Everything else, when we start looking into these different aspects as time goes on, and we elaborate, these will be on separate pages for sure. Especially like quantum gravity and quantum mechanics. That's gonna be one. The astrology aspect. That's gonna be another. The philosophical aspect. That's gonna be another. The biological aspect, which I mean, it's physiology, psychology, all those things that I list down. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There's a list. Topics of exploration. So these I kind of have to elaborate on a little more. So upper and lower bounds of truth of existence relative to timelines associated with lifetime that constitute reality as we experience it, the limits of energy or form relative to what is left in existence by definition, work regarding transfer from existence to extinction, relativity of extinction. This is Newtonian physics. This is the philosophical beginnings, I want to say, or the logic that was used to come up with this understanding. So, logic. This will be a placeholder for myself. Newtonian physics. This is cause and effect. This is time. I mean, I already got it. That's just time. I already have this linked. Excuse me. Oh. This is the constitutional analysis. So that's another thing that needs to get expanded upon. Objective good versus objective bad. So this is instinct. Yes, I don't. I mean, psychology. It is psychology, right? But then I got psychology right there. These are both psychology. Huh. Physiology, like what actually exists, and psychology as an understanding, and technology. I want to say this is physiology. And then this is psychology. Pretty, right there. I mean, they do. They do go hand in hand. This is like religion and astrology, philosophy. Oh yeah, cosmology. That's the other. I mean, astrology is like the philosophical interpretation, and there's cosmology, which I mean, it's relative to this, but also, cosmol. I don't want to put it with this, with time, because what dictates the time of the universe by the end of it is the stars. It's the celestial beings that exist, that allow habitable zones, that allow organic life to exist. That's where the tiers start coming down there. So there, I gotta add to this. So astrology's here. So as an aspect of that, and then cosmology. That's not Cosmo. Cosmo Wanda. All right, there we go. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. More exact to the definitions of those terms. Ooh. All right. Well, if you learned anything, sick. If not, then whatever. Hope you enjoyed. Uh, take the time to look at this stuff. Check it out for yourself. I don't know. But until next time, this was Spark saying peace. I'm tired. I need to eat. I haven't even eaten yet. I'm doing too much. All right.